Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Owens from the Reimagine Schools podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 241 of the House of EdTech, we're going to talk about digital equity and access in education. It's a topic I talked a little bit about before, but I think we need to talk about it again. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnessie.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of EdTech. Welcome, welcome. If this is your first episode, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. I'm so glad that you have chosen to make House of EdTech a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Very excited for this episode because, like I said at the beginning, this is something I've talked about previously. We're talking about digital equity and access. I previously did an episode on this, sort of, episode 210, and I talked about the need for digital equity. And there will be a link in the show notes for this episode, which are a swipe or a tap away if you have not yet listened to episode 210, but here we are in episode 241. Before I get into the featured content for this episode, a couple of quick things here. One, big shout out to Derek Larson, who is super fan of the podcast. He guest hosted a number of shows a couple years ago. He's always been a staple of the annual App Smackdown that I do each year in December, and this little announcement is related to that. Derek, out of the kindness of his heart, he purchased a domain to link to that mega spreadsheet that he also maintains for the App Smackdown. So if you visit appsmackdown.com, bookmark it. That's where you can find all of the App Smackdown stuff each year on the House of EdTech. And I want to thank Derek for buying a domain name and investing money and supporting the podcast in that way. And we were both very surprised that the domain App Smackdown was available. He sent it to me, he voxed me, and just very super cool, Derek, for you to do that. And I want to thank you publicly here so that way everybody knows you're the man behind the domain. So check out appsmackdown.com. Also, I don't normally do this, but it's my show and I can do what I want. And I want to give a couple of birthday shout outs. First, to former guest of the show, Christie Cloud. You might remember I had Christie on near and because of ISTE 2023. She was on and talked all about CuriePod, and she's continuing to be a force in the EdTech space. So happy birthday to you, Christie. And also, special happy birthday to Glenn Robbins. Glenn is a superintendent here in New Jersey for Brigantine Public Schools, and I shout out Glenn because he's obviously a friend, and he was also recently on our last episode of Podcast PD, episode 136, that I do with AJ Bianco, and we had Glenn and Danny Bauer from Better Leaders, Better Schools, as the two of them just wrote a book called Calm in the Chaos, and the book is about applying Stoic principles to school leadership. So think of, Socrates and Marcus Aurelius and the whole idea of the four virtues of justice, temperance, wisdom, and justice. I think I said justice twice, so I apologize. But they recently wrote a book that, if you're listening to this, hasn't come out yet. If you're listening to this right around the time I release the episode, but the book will be available as of February 6th. So if you're listening after February 6th, check the show notes. I will have a link for their book. But happy birthday to you, Glenn. One more announcement. I know, announcements. If you listen to this show on RadioPublic or Google Podcasts, the Google Podcast app, both of those apps are going away relatively soon. RadioPublic is going to shut down at the beginning of March 2024, and Google Podcasts is going away in April of 2024. Now, I don't want you to stop being able to listen to the podcast. So make sure you go to chrisnessy.com/follow, and that will take you to a page on my website that has links to other apps that you might want to switch to for all of your podcast listening. But again, RadioPublic and Google Podcasts are going away, and I don't want to lose you as a listener. And I'm sure all of the other podcasts you listen to don't want to lose you either. So chrisnessy.com/follow, find a new podcast app, and continue listening to the House of EdTech. And now, the EdTech recommendation. I want to start 2024 and February off with a bang, give you some great things. So I've got four recommendations for you in this episode. Number one, want to recommend the Magazine Rack. The Magazine Rack is this really cool collection of digitized magazines and other monthly publications that are accessible via archive.org. Now, if you're not familiar with archive.org, it is home to things like the Wayback Machine, where you can view old versions of websites dating back into the mid-90s. But the reason I recommend the Magazine Rack is because this will give you access to digitized versions of all sorts of magazines and other old monthly publications. And it's broken down, it's like a digital library, but it's all magazines and other content that probably isn't available anywhere, but it is available for free via the Magazine Rack. And I will have a link to that in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/241, or it is a swipe or a tap away where you're listening right now. Number two, this is called Classroomscreen, which you can find at classroomscreen.com. And this is, in essence, a browser tab that functions like multiple tabs where you can go full screen and you can present content almost in widget form that you can have on your interactive display in your classroom or just projected when students are coming in. And it is freemium really. For free, you can set this up and you'd have to kind of recreate your screen and your widgets on a daily basis. Or if you pay for it, you can set them up and then they are good to go. So if you are looking for a great visually appealing way to get some content in front of your students when they're walking into your classroom, and this would be great at any grade level, you might want to check out classroomscreen.com. Number three, AI Created Jeopardy. Check out this website, ALMANACK.ai, and Almanac is spelled ALMANACK. Sign up for a free account, navigate to Tools and Games, and choose Jeopardy. And you can enter your learning standard or another prompt, and Almanac will create your Jeopardy game with the dollar amounts, and it's interactive. You can display it full screen. You can get a printout of the answers, and you can create Jeopardy games super fast. And I remember when I used to do Jeopardy games, those are always tedious. And now here we go. AI can do it faster, and you can spend more time helping your students. The next one, this is also an AI-related tool, and this is called AskYourPDF.com. And that's exactly how it is spelled. AskYour, Y-O-U-R, PDF.com. And what you can do, you can use this for free. It's freemium. You can upload a PDF document, and then you can ask AI questions and interact with just that specific PDF document. So if you've got these digitized resources, you can upload them, interact with them. Maybe this is a way to even have your students start to play with artificial intelligence, and you are controlling the source material, because askyourpdf.com will analyze and understand the PDF you've provided to it, and then you can interact, and it's only going to give you responses based on what's in the PDF. So check out the Magazine Rack, check out Classroomscreen, check out ALMANACK.ai and some of the AI tools there, specifically the Jeopardy game, and of course, check out AskYourPDF.com. And those are my EdTech recommendations. All right, let's dive into the featured content for this episode. And again, we are talking about equity and access in terms of the digital world. So we're going to dive into this, all right? We're going to talk about understanding digital equity and access. We're going to talk about the impact of the digital divide. We're going to talk about how we can overcome some of the challenges. We're going to talk about the role of policy and advocacy. And we are also going to look forward, okay? So be ready to take notes or be ready to rewind. And certainly, if you find value in this episode, I encourage you to let me know. And if you think somebody else you know would find value in this episode of the podcast, make sure that you share it with them. Okay? Let's get started. Digital equity and access. These are terms that have been in education for many years. And really, they came to the forefront when we had this, global pandemic, and there was this big shift to digital learning. But what do they really mean, and why are they so important? Let's break it down. First, digital equity. It's about ensuring that every student has equal access to digital tools, resources, and services necessary for learning. It's not just having computers and internet in schools. It's about making sure every student can use the resources effectively, regardless of their background, location, or their socioeconomic status. Then there's digital access. This is more straightforward. Digital access refers to the ability of internet connectivity and digital devices to students. It's about having the hardware, having the software, and a reliable internet connection. Sounds simple, right? But it is a complex issue that affects millions of students worldwide. Why is this important? Well, in an age where technology is intertwined with almost every aspect of our lives, being digitally literate is no longer just an advantage. It's a necessity. The way we work, communicate, and learn is increasingly digital. For students, lacking access to technology or not knowing how to use it effectively can create a significant gap in their learning, and that's going to impact their future opportunities. Consider this. A recent study found that a significant percentage of students in underprivileged areas don't have consistent access to a computer or high-speed internet at home. This isn't just about being able to do homework. It's about being able to develop skills needed for the 21st century workforce. And this is where the concept of the digital divide comes in. It's a term that we will explore in depth in a few minutes. But for now, think about the implications. When some students can seamlessly integrate technology into their learning, while others are struggling to get online, the gap in educational and subsequent career opportunities can widen significantly. But do not worry, do not fret. There's hope. All around the world, educators like you and me, policymakers, and other organizations are working to bridge this gap. Throughout the rest of this episode, I'm going to look at some of the challenges that we face and the innovative solutions that are available and what the future holds for digital equity and access in education. Let's start by understanding the digital divide and what that really means. In its simplest form, it's about who has access to tools and who doesn't. But it's a little bit more complex than that. It's about who can use the tools effectively in their education and who's left behind struggling because they either lack access or skills. It's a divide that can shape a student's educational journey and their future opportunities. Consider this scenario. Two students, both are eager to learn, but one has high-speed internet, a personal laptop, and a quiet place to study at home. The other student shares a single device with siblings, has unreliable internet, and no dedicated space for studying. The difference in their educational experiences is glaring. The first student, they can easily access online resources, submit assignments on time, and participate in any virtual learning opportunities. The second student, however, is constantly battling barriers, which can lead to frustration, disengagement, and, of course, falling behind in class. What are the long-term implications of this? The digital divide isn't just about immediate challenges in accessing education. It's also about the long-term effects. Students who consistently face barriers due to the digital divide, they are at a higher risk of lower academic achievement, reduced digital literacy, and limited career opportunities in this digital world that we live in. This divide contributes to these cycles of inequality as access to technology becomes a determinant of future success. As educators, parents like myself, stakeholders in education, it's important that we recognize and address the digital divide. It's not just a matter of fairness. It's about providing every student with the tools they need to succeed. The consequences of ignoring this divide are significant, not just for the affected students, but for society as a whole, as we risk leaving a generation ill-prepared for the future that they will live and work in. As we move forward, let's think about how we can bridge this divide. In the next part, I'm going to explore the challenges that schools and communities face in providing digital equity and access, and some of the solutions that could be implemented as we go forward. So at this point, let's acknowledge some of the obstacles that we face. The path to digital equity is littered with challenges, and some are more daunting and complicated than others. Top of the list, you guessed it, funding. Schools, especially in underserved areas, often struggle with limited budgets. This means fewer resources for up-to-date technology, high-speed internet, and even basic digital devices. It's a significant hurdle, but it is not insurmountable. Another challenge lies in infrastructure. In many rural or low-income areas, the lack of reliable internet connectivity is a major barrier. It's like building a highway without access roads. The infrastructure simply isn't there to support the technology we want to implement. Then, there's the issue of training and support. Handing a student a device is one thing, but ensuring they and teachers like you and me know how to use it effectively is another thing altogether. Professional development for educators in the digital age is not just a nicety, it's a necessity. So how are schools and communities overcoming these challenges? Innovative solutions and sheer determination. That's how. Take, for instance, the grant programs that have been a lifeline for many schools. By tapping into federal, state, or private funding, schools have been able to purchase devices, build out their infrastructure, and train staff. That's a game changer. Public-private partnerships are another avenue. Companies in the tech sector are increasingly aware of their role in shaping the future of education. By partnering with schools, they're providing not just equipment, but also expertise and, oftentimes, crucially, access to high-speed internet. And let's not forget the power of good old-fashioned community initiatives. In some areas, local businesses, libraries, and even individuals step up offering Wi-Fi hotspots, setting up community technology centers, and even donating devices. It is heartening to see communities come together like this. But perhaps the most inspiring are schools themselves, innovating within their means. In overcoming these challenges, it's clear that collaboration, creativity, and commitment are key. Whether it's through securing grants, forming partnerships, or community involvement, the goal is the same: to bridge the digital divide and ensure that every student has access to succeed in the world. As we move forward, remember that overcoming these challenges is not just a task for schools. This is a community effort. It's also a responsibility for us as a society. We all have a part to play in ensuring digital equity and access for every student. The next piece I want to talk about is the role of policy and how we can advocate for all of this. When we talk about digital equity, again, it's not about the devices or the internet connection. It's about the environment that we create where every student has the opportunity to learn and thrive. So, where is policy and advocacy going to come into play? Think about this. Every significant change in education has been driven or influenced by policy. We like some, we don't like others. But from the introduction of public schooling to the integration of technology in classrooms, policy is what shapes the education landscape. Let's talk about the present. In recent years, we've seen a surge in initiatives aimed at bridging the digital divide. These range from local school policies to state-level initiatives and even federal legislation. But the question remains, are these policies enough? Are they effectively addressing the root issues of digital inequality? For example, the recent push for broadband expansion in rural and underserved areas. This is a step in the right direction, but this is just one piece of the puzzle. We also need policies that ensure students have access to the necessary devices and that teachers are receiving the training to effectively integrate technology into their teaching. We can't overlook the importance of ongoing support and maintenance either. It's not just about handing out devices. It's about guaranteeing and ensuring that they are functional, up-to-date, and suitable for education purposes. This requires continuous funding and policy support. But policies don't change in a vacuum. Look at so many other things in the world today. This is where advocacy comes into play. Educators, parents, students, community members, every single one of us has a role to play. By voicing our needs and concerns, by participating in the discussion and the decision-making processes, we can influence the direction of these policies. Now, I don't mean for this to sound political, but we've seen incredible examples of advocacy in action, from teachers campaigning for better digital resources, to students themselves leading initiatives to provide devices for their peers. These stories are not just inspiring, they're a powerful reminder of what we can achieve when we come together for a common cause. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the responsibility of policymakers. It's crucial that they engage with the communities they serve. Again, I have to put my history teacher hat on. They also need to understand the unique challenges that different districts face. And we need to create policies that are inclusive and equitable. One-size-fits-all solutions do not cut it, especially when we're trying to address the diverse needs across our schools. And of course, let's not forget, and again, history teacher hat on, policy change takes time. I know, we all wish things would move faster. But this really requires patience, persistence, and most importantly, a sustained effort. It's not just about the immediate response to a crisis like the recent pandemic. It's about long-term strategies that ensure that all students have equitable access to the digital tools that they need for their education. Now, let's look forward. In the digital age, one thing is certain. Technology will continue to advance, and with it, the landscape of education will transform. We're seeing emerging trends like affordable broadband initiatives, which aim to provide high-speed internet access to more households, including those in the rural and low-income urban areas. This isn't just a game changer. This is a life changer, ensuring that the internet, an essential resource for modern education, is no longer a luxury, but a basic right for everybody. And of course, another exciting development is the rise of the new educational technologies. Think about all the AI we've been talking about and learning about in the last year that's allowing us to personalize learning platforms. Virtual reality is going to transform education over the next decade to the next 2 decades. Collaboration tools that bring students closer together from around the globe, that is here. These technologies aren't just about making learning more engaging. They're about making it more accessible, more custom, and more equitable. But as we continue to look and move forward, we must also recognize the responsibilities that come with these advancements. We need to ensure that these technologies are not only available, but also accessible to all students. This means we need to consider things like usability for students with disabilities, language options for ESL learners, and culturally responsive content that reflects the diversity of our ever-changing student population. Community involvement is also going to be key. It's not just educators like you and me and policymakers. It's on all of us, parents, students, and of course, our community leaders. We all need to advocate and contribute to a future where digital equity is the norm, not the exception. Whether it's through supporting local initiatives, staying informed about policy changes, or simply asking and sparking conversations about the importance of digital access, every action counts. As I wrap up this episode, I want you to think about this. What role can you play in shaping this future? How can you contribute to building an educational world where every student, regardless of their background, has equitable access to the digital tools and the resources that they need to succeed? The path to digital equity in education is a journey, not a destination. It's a journey that requires our collective effort, a shared vision, and unwavering commitment. Let's continue this journey together with hope and with determination, so that way we can create a future where every student has the opportunity to reach their full potential in the world we live in. Now it's time for the Just Give It a Try segment, and I talked about this about a year ago, but I have officially launched a new podcast, and I would love it if you would just give it a try. My new podcast is a daily podcast, and by daily I mean Monday through Friday, because even I need time off. It's called Inspiring Thoughts Daily. Here's the description. Welcome to Inspiring Thoughts Daily, where every day you'll be treated to a shot of motivation to kickstart your day. Host Chris Nesi, that's me, brings you the most thought-provoking and inspiring quotes, stories, and anecdotes to help you tackle the day with a spring in your step. Whether you're feeling stuck in a rut and need a push to get moving, or just want a daily reminder to stay focused on your goals, this podcast has you covered. So listen every day for your daily dose of inspiration, and let's make today the best it can be. You can find Inspiring Thoughts Daily in any podcatcher, and you can also check out the website, inspiringthoughtsdaily.com. I want to thank you for tuning in to what I think is a very special and a very important episode of the podcast. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and follow the show so you can continue to make it a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. To get the most out of the House of EdTech, be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. They are a swipe or a tap away where you're listening right now, or you can go out to the website, chrisnessy.com/241. And I genuinely enjoy hearing from you, and I value your feedback. I talked about a lot today. I want to know what you think. I asked you some questions. What are your answers? What are your thoughts? Email me, feedback@chrisnessy.com, or better yet, leave a voicemail. Go to chrisnessy.com/voicemail. Your input and your thoughts help me make better content, and I can improve the show. So please share your thoughts with me. If you know somebody who would benefit from listening to the show, I invite you to share it with them. Spread the word on social media or through word of mouth. Your efforts help me reach a wider audience of educators who will also get value from the show. And I want to thank you in advance for helping me to share the House of EdTech. Lastly, I invite you to become an awesome supporter. If you get value from my content, consider joining this group of people who provide ongoing support. Thank you to Leo Calbush, Jeff Herb, Peggy George, Mike Messner, Matt Miller, Brian Carpenter, and Erin Cummings. Again, if you get value from the show, you could become an awesome supporter by visiting chrisnessy.com/awesome. Your generosity goes a long way to help me continue to deliver exceptional content and grow the House of EdTech community. The next episode of the podcast is going to be episode 242, and that's going to come your way on February 18th, 2024. I want to thank everybody who has, and I hope you join this too, to join my texting initiative via GroupMe. It was so great after the last episode to get a lot of people join up and, we can connect with each other. So go to chrisnessy.com/textwithme, chrisnessy.com/textwithme, and you will join the GroupMe. The Remind group is going away, and you could also do the Discord thing, chrisnessy.com/discord. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, using technology is not difficult. Just give it a try.